Hello and welcome everyone to the Card Fellas live show here on YouTube. If you're getting us on the podcast every Wednesday, we are live at 10:30 that Central Time. We're talking sets tonight. We're talking baseball, and we're talking about a era of baseball that we've talked about many times on this show, and we love it. We're talking about 1987. We'll do a little bit more chatting before we reveal what specific set we're going to talk about, but Chris, good to see you. How's everything going?
Well, first, I just want to say I think this is the first time we've done this show when I wasn't wearing a hat. So don't screens. We both have the same haircut.
We do. We go to the same barber. His name is Bick, and he does a good job. So yes, this is the reveal show. Right. If you're on the podcast, you'll definitely want to go to the YouTube page and see what Chris looks like without a hat on. Right. That's a hell of a tease. That's a cross promotion, if you will. We're gonna be putting our two heads together and talking about 1987 Donruss, the Rookies. So this was a set that you kind of pulled out and said, and I want to talk about this set. And I was like, okay, I'm always down to hear what's on your mind when you're thinking about kind of what we talk about the sets and how we come up with those ideas. I'll just throw it out to you. What made you come to this set and say let's spend some time talking about it?
Well, I think when you said okay, that was code for why would you want to talk about that? I read through the lines on that one, so I'm just going to go with that. But
I do that all the time. And then I dig and I'm like, that was a really good set to talk about. This one, I'll tell you, it's a little difficult to find content on. So I'm interested to hear why.
Yeah, I just, when we kind of got back into this a couple years ago, and, the Donruss cards, the modern day Donruss cards, what we call ultra modern, unlicensed. But one of the cool things that I found, even in football, is they have the rookies in there. And I'm like, yeah, man, I remember the rookies. That was cool. And back in our day, we didn't see a lot of them. When you go to shows, you didn't see a lot of those cards. I think those sets were pretty much hobby only at the time. They were tough to find. And even the cards themselves, the singles, were tough to find. I just don't remember seeing a ton of them, but I just remember that logo, and it was very cool. I know the Rated Rookie logo is the logo that everybody loves these days, and those are cool too, but the rookies I just enjoyed. And when we got back into this, I just, like so many other people, I went back and went, all right, well, I'm going to go back and scoop those sets up.
Yeah.
And they were super inexpensive. I mean, I think you could buy this set, you probably could have picked it up in 2018 for a couple bucks.
Yes.
I did look today, and they're selling anywhere from $10 to $15 on eBay right now. So, I think a lot of people went in and said kind of the same thing I did. Let's go after this. But the set itself, the first year of it was 1986. Donruss came out in 1985 with a highlights set. And that set actually did very well for them.
Yes.
They kind of said, let's do something with rookies. And again, if we go back to that era in sports cards, it's very similar to what we're living through right now, in that cards were booming. People were getting into it. They were excited about it. And these companies saw an opportunity for them to make more money. Instead of just putting out the one set, they're like, we can do these other things and put these other sets out and make more money. And I think that's, an old Mel Brooks line, Spaceballs 2, the quest for more money. That's what this is all about, So
the sequel. Yes.
that was the sequel. So that's what they came out with. And again, these sets, they continue with the highlight sets. They had the rookie sets as well. And they're just fun. I mean, I like them, and I think we talked about our show a few weeks ago. Mark McGwire. I was always a McGwire guy too, so that kind of led into it as well.
Yeah, and I think the rookies set, like you said, I mean, it drew your attention when you were at card shows, and this was a hobby only thing. So you did not find these at Target, you did not find these at Sam's Club, which we've talked about in the past. And the thing that made it this set particularly interesting to me was I didn't get this set. This wasn't a set I was after. It wasn't a set I saw very often. I saw the 1986 set quite often, and I purchased it quite often when we got back into the hobby, because you could, again, buy those for like $5. That had Bonds. It had, Bo Jackson. So those were the cards that I really wanted. But this set, I had to go and look and remind myself what it looked like. And it had the similar look to the Donruss set of that year, which was the black border, except for it was green. And for those of you listening to us on this podcast, we're showing pictures of the Mark McGwire card. And it has the green border. It has the similar kind of black and gold trim insert on the sides, and then the red and yellow name, and then the rookies in the bottom right-hand corner and stage right. But on the card, it's on the left. But the card itself was, and that's how they did the update. They changed the color of the background, so you knew. A little bit more background on the set. It was a 56 card set. And as you mentioned, Chris, the highlights was their insert set, or their extended set, if you will, back in 85. And so in 86, they went to the rookies, bless you. And then in I think what Donruss might have gotten, what might have changed from the highlights to the rookies was, I think they saw the success of the rookie cards in the Fleer updates and the Tops updates for the years leading up to it. The 84 Fleer and 84 Tops updates and trade-ins, and then 85, those cards were highly sought after. So I think maybe Donruss was saying, we have an opportunity here to put some of these rookie cards. And the stipulation was, the set included players who made their major league debut during that season. The one kind of interesting part of that was, as we mentioned, the Bo Jackson, he was in 86 and 87. So a little bit of a unique player there from a set standpoint. Again, we talked about it. They were exclusively released to hobby dealers, so you weren't going to find these again at a retail store. And the thing that I remember about these is the boxes that they came in were sealed very well, and but they were packaged. And Chris, you'll have to. I couldn't find this, but were these packaged in cellophane like the other ones, or were these the loose ones? Because I know the 86 and 88, I believe, were cellophane, but I think all of these were. But I think they were too. I couldn't find any pictures to like truly confirm that, but I think these were all cellophane wrapped. Yeah, so so the fact that when they came out of the factory box, they were wrapped in cellophane, all 56 cards, plus your Roberto Clemente puzzle piece, that with the 15 piece, that was in there as well. So when you look at the packaging, and this is, you mentioned you can buy these sets now for like $10-15. You can also get them for about 25. But I think that's based on the integrity of the box. The box was really key to this, because it was a flimsy box, and then you had the cellophane. These cards were really temperamental when you pulled them out of the box and the cellophane, because the cellophane kind of pushed on the edges, and then the box, if you were banging the boxes around, the cards, these cards were hard to find in good shape coming out of these boxes because of how they packaged it. And I'm not a big fan of how they packaged it, but at the time, I mean, they probably weren't thinking, oh man, these are going to be PSA 10s. We have to protect these. Nobody thought like that back in 87. So the packaging right now, we'll talk about some of the pop reports and the PSAs and all that stuff, but that cellophane and those boxes really impacted how these cards came out of this pack.
Yeah, and that's how they packaged all of their sets. I mean, if you were just to buy kind of the base set,
that's true.
It was the same way. There's a bunch of little bricks in the box. I've opened a few sets. I know I've opened some 89 sets. And on the 89 sets, the top card was always the Grand Slam card. So they would make a card of everyone who had a Grand Slam the year before. So that card, I'm sure if you ever went and looked at the pop report, whatever that top card was in each one of those little cellophane packs, probably struggled to come in very well. But yeah, it's an interesting way to do things. But I mean, everybody was doing that. I mean, you and I bought a big collection last summer that had a bunch of those Fleer like season highlight sets from 1987. There was a couple of boxes of those in that collection, and same thing. And really, you talked about those retailers that had these things. What I remember actually, and I know you lived in Minneapolis, which was kind of the home of Target, but I grew up in the Chicago area, and I went to Kmart, and I just remember seeing these things all the time. Not this particular set, but those Fleer sets were always at Kmart, and
Yes.
kind of one of those things that these stores would carry. But this was a hobby only type of set, so it was tougher to find. But honestly, I actually bought some cases of these sets, the boxes that had 15 of these sets in each one of them. And if you did that early on, I think I was buying the boxes, for like $35.
I remember that
for like less than $250 a set. So I think that's the way to buy them. I think you can still find them on eBay pretty inexpensively if you want to stack some of these up. Who knows what's going to happen at PSA, but they're just fun cards. The other thing that you kind of went through the design, but one of the things that I like, the design element, and what always stands out for me in this 87 set is, those little baseballs in the middle of the design. I just think it's cool. It's a quintessential kind of 1987 type of thing when you think of it.
Right.
But the checklist in this, and you talked about the Bo card. So Bo was in the 86 set, came back in the 87 set, and I guess they did that because he didn't play in enough games in 86 to make him to lose his eligibility for Rookie of the Year in 87. And I think that was also a marketing ploy. I mean,
absolutely.
Think about all the basketball sets in the 1990s and even baseball sets that have Michael Jordan cards in them. Any time they could squeeze Michael Jordan into a set, they did it.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the same thing with Bo there. But you had McGwire, you had Greg Maddux, who's the lone Hall of Famer in the set. The problem is a lot of these sluggers were steroid era sluggers, but Fred McGriff is a guy that I think could probably should be in the Hall of Fame, and I think probably will be before too long. He was in the set. There's a look at the back of the card. And one of the things, again, we've talked about a lot of times in this show is Donruss at the time was really good about having detailed stats, having minor league stats on the back of the cards. Wish we still had that these days, but back of the card, very cool. Full names on there, date of birth, all those kinds of things. There's the Bo card.
And, the full names on the back. You found out what Bo's real name was.
What's Bo's real name?
Isn't it Vincent Edward Jackson?
That's what it is.
Yeah. So, that was the great thing about Donruss, that you learn something about these players. And we've talked about that many times on the show, that was our internet when we were kids.
Right.
Some people maybe don't understand that that's where we got our information about these players. And or we waited for Mel Allen on Saturday to take us through this week in baseball to tell us about a player. But baseball cards were our lifeline to a lot of what baseball was all about, and these players were all about. So Donruss did a good job of doing that. And the back of their cards, the typical Donruss look, they didn't change the back.
Right.
They just changed the front on the updates, and they didn't even change they didn't even put a U or a T by the number like Fleer or Topps did. They just went with the regular number, and the back stayed the same. But yeah, the front was the different part, and that was where it was the unique look. And when you look at this set, like you mentioned, the only Hall of Famer is Greg Maddux. A couple other guys that could be there. Should be there, is part of that. David Cohn was a guy who was in demand back in 1987, and another guy that we don't have a picture of if you're watching on YouTube is Matt Williams. He had a good career for the Giants. These are some of the guys that based on the number of cards being graded by these guys, that's how we judge the popularity of these cards, is which ones have been sent in how many times to be graded. But when you said that you were buying boxes or cases of these boxes, so the cases came in a heavier cardboard, And the cards packs were the 15. It came with 15, and they were packed in real tight. And so, like, there was some really good protection, like you said. If you were looking to get something out of this now, a sealed case would be your best option. There's no question about it. And one recently sold on eBay for $175. So the days of 30 to 35, Chris, are long gone, like much of the other things that we've seen in the hobby. But it just gives you an idea of where things were at and what people have, gravitated towards. Because I think buying these boxes, people are skeptical, right, of how it's going to come out, whether they've been searched. And that's the other thing. If it's not in the cellophane, it's been searched, and you're probably going to get a substandard card. So that's where you look at these. There's a variety of prices for these boxes on eBay. Some of them are, like we said, 10 to 15. Some of them are 25, 30. And it's really based on what does the box look like? Are the cards still in this? Are they searched? And so there's going to be a lot of variety of these types of cards on at least the set boxes on eBay on the secondary market. Now, speaking of the secondary market and these cards, they're plentiful now. You can find them on there, and they're dirt cheap. That's the good thing about this. If you're looking to get these cards, they're affordable.
I think a lot of those cards that you're seeing are kind of, and I did this. I bought a ton of 1987 Fleer update sets and pulled all the McGuires and the Madduxes and sent those into PSA. So the ones you're probably seeing are the ones that didn't make the cut for somebody who was doing something like that. Maybe they're off center or something like that. And that's one of the things that you'll see with this set is there are a lot of off center cards. Getting back to the checklist, another guy that was on there is Benito Santiago.
Oh, yeah.
Not a Hall of Famer, but a really, really good catcher from back in the day. You mentioned that Matt Williams card. So all the guys that we've mentioned, other than Matt Williams, had a card in the base set. But this was actually Matt Williams' first Donruss card. It was also Ellis Burks. That was his first Donruss card, and Kevin Seitzer. These are thought of as extra rookie cards. Their rookie cards are kind of thought as the 88 product. But those are guys that certainly aren't Hall of Famers, but definitely have a local following. I still sell Matt Williams cards all the time. People from the San Francisco Bay Area still idolize them, and fantastic hitting third baseman there for the Giants. And Ellis Burks was just a speedy outfielder for the Red Sox. And, that wasn't a great era for Boston, but he was a really, really good player. So, those guys still have a following, and people still collect those guys, which is kind of funny to people today that are really into kind of the mega stars. But back in those days, people, they went for that second tier type of player. And if they were on their team, that was the guys that they were collecting. So I think that was another thing that's different about collecting in the 80s and before that too, in the 60s too, is people just collected their teams and their local guys, and they were loyal to those people. Now you'll find Mike Trout fans pretty much everywhere across the country, because they're just like, oh, this guy's great and I love him. But
his card has value, right?
Right. Yeah, that helps too.
That helps too. But you hit the nail on the head there. And the other thing is, these guys were always all-stars. Like Benito Santiago was always an all-star. And Matt Williams is all-star. These guys were constant all-stars, just on the fringe of being Hall of Famers. They weren't quite there, but they were always relevant. And so I think that's that looking at this roster and looking at this checklist, you say, well, these are, they're not quite like the superstar Hall of Famers, but they were really, really good players for their respective teams. And they played for their teams for a while, and enough where, like you said, they have a following. And that's what makes these sets, these 56 card sets unique too, is, all the names are familiar. There's usually guys, like, you mentioned Kevin Seitzer. Like that's a name that Royals fans will always remember, and so that's it. It may not be widely known in, the circles of major leagues, and especially if you weren't from that era, you don't know who Kevin Seitzer is. But at that time, he was a dang good player for the Royals, and people loved him. So, Yeah, just an interesting set, good checklist, fun checklist, and a unique card, a unique card from Donruss with that iconic The Rookies that is still around today,
Right.
and that's like you mentioned right off the top, that's there right away. So um, the when we talk about these cards as well, the idea of getting these cards in good condition, I think it was twofold. Again, the packaging, and you mentioned it too, the centering was an issue. And I think when you couple those two things together and you start looking at the pop report, and obviously whenever we talk about these sets, we talk about these cards, we want to talk about value, and we want to talk about what's out there, and we always look at the PSA pop reports. And this one is it was interesting to me. I don't remember exactly how it was packed. So, Chris, Mark McGwire was card number 1. And was he the top card then all the time? I don't remember. I couldn't find anything that said yes or no to that, but was he always the one on top?
I don't remember that, to be honest.
I don't either.
It's been a while since I've cracked one of these, and I actually, if you've been following the podcast, we've been really putting out a lot of shows, and you probably noticed in the last week we haven't. Both Matt and I have both been on the road, and I literally came off the highway about a half an hour after putting 947 miles on today in the truck. So,
and here you are, still dedicated to do a live show. So here's why I ask, because Mark McGwire is card number 1, and he has a 5% gem rate on his card that has been graded 2,700 times. Now, the card that has been graded the most is the Maddux with 5,440 times graded. He has a gem rate of 8%. That's 4, and so he's the second number at 8%. The other guys, Rafael Palmeiro is the third. He has just about 1,400 graded, a gem rate of about 14%. Bo Jackson, gem rate of about 17%. Matt Williams, 13. David Cohn, 25. Fred McGriff, 22. So when you start hearing those numbers, it made me think, okay, McGwire must have been the top card. And that's why he has the lowest gem rate. And so when you look at that gem rate, there's only 137 Mark McGwire 10s. And there is only, actually, out of the 2,700, there's only 517 9s. Most of them, almost 1,400, are 8s. So that tells me it was probably the first card there, and that's why that pop report number is so low. But even though you have a frisky low pop there, that's still a $125 card at PSA 10. And it's actually, when you compare that to Maddux's card's going for about 150, 175. Again, he's a Hall of Famer. Bo Jackson's at around about the same, 150, 175. Palmeiro about 40 to 50. So when you look at those, that McGwire card is really kind of an interesting card to grab, because if that is the case, where that is the first card in the cellophane, then you are probably going to have that pop report stay around the same for quite a while. And only 137. If he gets into the Hall of Fame, for some odd reason, he ends up in the Hall of Fame. That's one of those frisky low pops that someone might be coming back to chase. So I don't know. I found it interesting, and when you look at what I did read about when I was doing research for this set was the 1986 set, and the number 1 card in there was Wally Joyner, and Wally Joyner cards in a PSA 10 were very, very difficult. So I would assume that that's the case. So, but regardless, the numbers are low on the PSA 10s for Mark McGwire, and they go up as the cards get kind of deeper in the set. If it were to be that way, Mark McGwire was card number 1. Bo Jackson was 14. Fred McGriff was 31. David Cohn was 35. Matt Williams was 45. Rafael Palmeiro 47, and Greg Maddux was near the back though, at number 52. And remember, there's a 56 card set, but I believe the puzzle piece was in the back. So I wonder if that puzzle piece helped protect some of those cards that were lower in that cellophane.
Yep, that was right. I remember the cellophane I just opened a ton of the regular sets too in the cellophane, and the puzzle piece was always in the back. And the puzzle piece in the rookie set actually is the entire picture that you would get, but it's just really micro small pieces there to make that puzzle. So it's a little bit different than what you would get in the packs. And I think you're probably right, just based on that pop report data, that I'm assuming that McGwire card was on top. The interesting thing, though, if we really get into the pop report, I mean, again, rarity is kind of a funny thing to talk about when we talk about these cards. And again, everybody kind of understands that this is kind of the beginning of the junk wax era. But, if you look at the regular base set McGwire card, there's basically 10 times, there's actually more than 10 times the PSA 10s in the base set compared to the rookies. There's 137 rookies in a 10, and in the base set card, there's 1,700. Way more cards graded as well. If you look at the rookies, they had 2,700 cards graded, and if you look at the base cards, 24,000 graded. So,
wow,
if you're out there and you're looking for kind of that lower pop type of card, it's something that, and really the sale price of these cards are almost identical. The base set cards in a 10 are selling for like $100, and the rookies are selling for $100 to $120. So if you want to buy something that has a little more rarity to it, I think that's definitely the way to go, is with the rookie set, because there is a huge difference in the pop report of what's out there, what's available, and the prices are really close.
Yeah, and we like looking for those frisky low pops. You'll hear us use that term here, and that means just the cards that we think has potential to really grab somebody's attention, because there's not going to be that much inventory on eBay if you ever want to try and sell it. Right. You can kind of set your price, and so that's I think that's changed a little bit given the economy right now and what the market is telling you. But when it was good and you had some rarity, it was selling really quickly, and it was selling for the price you could set it for. But eventually it might get back to that, might not. But it's interesting to hear those numbers about the base. And I think a lot of people sometimes gravitate towards those base cards because that's what they remember. Right. And maybe they don't remember seeing, and I'll be honest, I don't remember seeing that Mark McGwire card very often. I don't remember seeing that Fred McGriff card at all. Right. I remember his 86 rated rookie, but I don't remember his 87 the rookies card. So that was an interesting that was an interesting card too. And that was another interesting fact that Fred McGriff had an 86 rated rookie card. And so much like Bo Jackson, who was in the 86 the rookie set, must not have qualified for a rookie, and they decided to put him in. And plus he was the crime dog. People were talking about him. They're speculating that he was going to be the next great home run hitter. So maybe put him in a set again and see what happens, and trying to make a little bit more money that these card companies had hoped for. But the opportunities there for some of these cards. I did find it interesting that the top seven were Maddux, McGwire, Palmeiro was ahead of Bo Jackson, which I thought was interesting. But with that being said, there were a lot of 86 cards with Bo Jackson on it. So, and Palmeiro was a guy who was closing in on being a surefire Hall of Famer, right? And then, and then he went in front of Congress, and the rest is history. But these guys had their reputations tarnished quite a bit, and then it was Matt Williams, and then David Cohn, and then Fred McGriff. So I think there's, like you said, I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said, these guys were really iconic for their teams, for their cities. They were likable guys. They were guys that did a lot for their team and their fan base got excited about them. And so I think there was, it's just a different era of baseball. And I think those were the guys that were probably sending those cards in. They probably had, the Mets were my team, it's like, Matt Williams was my guy, it's just that was the era. And so this set really, shows that. And I think that's, these players, Greg Maddux was a Cub, he was really close to being, and then he goes, of course, to the Braves, and where he's an absolute legend. And Bo Jackson, I think just Bo Jackson just has appeal all across the board, no matter where. But it was interesting, fun looking at this. And again, if you're listening to this on the podcast, I do recommend going and checking out these cards, what we're talking about, because I think you'll be surprised again to see them. This was I didn't expect the green borders. Like, like we've talked about, I didn't expect that. I expected it to look exactly like the 87 base set, which had the black borders. But that's how Donruss made it different. And they said, we're going to make this look different, and it's going to show that this is an update set, and it's going to be unique. And they were the only ones in town really doing that. I guess the Topps traded, they kind of changed. They made the back of the cards a little more brighter. They popped a little bit, but the Fleer updates kind of stayed the same. And but the front of the Topps cards stayed the same. Whereas Donruss said, no, we're going to really make these different, and we're going to change the color. So if you find one of these cards in the base set, or like when you're thumbing through cards, you're going to know, okay, that's not part of the base set. So, smart move on them to really single these out and give them their own identity.
Right. Yeah. What's funny is when I was looking up some of this stuff on the road today, I had somebody helping me drive on the way home, and I just looked at some of the sets throughout the years, and like the 1990 Donruss set, the rookie set had some really kind of loud colors with it. The base card was that dark red card.
You're right.
And I think the rookie set was like orange, and then there was actually two colors. But what was funny about that one was that they didn't put a Frank Thomas card in that set. So
that's right.
They completely missed the boat on Frank Thomas. So that's there was one guy who ended up being the man, and he's not even in the set. So I think Dave Justice is like the best card. I think Justice and Olerud were in there, but
those sets are really, really, really cheap. You can buy those for they're the ones you can still buy cheap in the hobby. Right. And but it's like Sandy Alomar. I'm looking at David Just, because they went with in 90 they went with the green.
Okay.
They went with green, and then 89 was green too, I believe, because that was Griffey.
It was Griffey. It was a little bit different color, but that one is probably the one that's closest to the base set. That would probably be the easiest to mistake without the rookies in the front of it. But that Griffey card is another card that people really gravitate towards, and went out and scooped up kind of when we went back to the card boom here a few years ago.
So. And that one got squished. I know that, and that was card number 1. So these cellophane packaging in these Donruss the rookies boxes really, really hurt the card values, especially cards number 1. So Wally Joyner, Mark McGwire, Ken Griffey Jr. Those cards are going to be lower on the pop report, but and something to look at too. I think that's an interesting. You and I've called the 1989 Donruss Ken Griffey Jr. the unicorn, because that card is so hard to find in a 10. I think probably the rookies cards, they're probably even more difficult, especially nowadays. And I think the value right now for these, you and I talk a lot about, what would you do if you saw one of these sitting there, and what would be the price that you'd be willing to pay for it? And I don't know if I would pay $10 to $15 for this at this point. I'm very sure I wouldn't pay $25, but if they got back down to $5, it'd probably be a buyer.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how things progress. I think things are starting to stabilize in that pricing market. And if you've got stuff that you want to sell, my advice to you is start selling, because I don't think the values are going to go up in the next 6 months. I think things will rebound eventually, but we're still, even though the market is down from what it was a year ago, if you compare prices today to 2018, we're still really fetching some really nice prices on some of this stuff. So if you've got stuff to sell, I would say now is the time. So
I'd like to continue that conversation for a little bit. You and I didn't really rehearse this, but you brought up some interesting points. You ready to put a bow on the 1987 Donruss, the rookies? You have anything more?
I think we.
I think you bring up some interesting points about selling, and you are a power seller on eBay. You have done a lot of interesting things to get people to buy. I think it's good for our listeners to understand what's happening in the marketplace, and I'm selling as well, so I can speak to it. But I know you've been more active on posting, so. Give me kind of your elevator speech on what's happening right now with your shop on eBay and what you're seeing and what you think, speculative, what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm a power seller, but I'm definitely an active seller on eBay. And I just think what's happening right now is the prices of everything are going up. The reality is, when we go to the grocery store to buy groceries, they cost more money. Gasoline right now is well documented. It costs more money to do basically anything right now. The prices have gone. Inflation's a real thing. Prices have gone up on a lot of stuff. And most people, their wages, their salary hasn't gone up at the rate of everything else that they're buying. So, a lot of people are saying, well, the gas prices aren't really going to affect me. The grocery store prices aren't going to affect me. They're still going to go and buy the things we're going to buy. Okay, well, if you're going to do that, the reality is, those things are all going to cost you maybe $20 or $30 more a week than they would have before. So if we just take your groceries and gas at $20 each, that's $40 a week. So over the course of a month, that's $150, $175. And that's real money that was getting spent in other places that now it's not getting spent in other places. And kind of the first things that end up going are things that people are going to deem unnecessary. So, we're maybe not going to go out to eat as much as we used to, or we're not going to go and buy that blaster box that we used to. I've stopped a few different times at my local Target and Walmart and gone, well, there's a box of Donruss there, but do I really want to spend $15 on a box of Donruss to get $5 worth of cards? And it might be fun to open it. And I probably would have done that a year ago.
Right.
Because I had more money in my pocket. And today I was like, I can take it or leave it. Don't need it. I'll take a look at some of the cards I want and just buy them on eBay and call it a day. So I think that's happening. And so I think people are just spending less on kind of those fun things. So what that ends up doing eventually is just lowering prices. And I think other people are jumping into the selling game right now too. And that lowers prices too. A lot of people look at comps, and maybe they've got a card that's worth $50 and they look at comps and everybody's selling their card for between 45 and 50. And they're like, I want to sell this right away.
Yes.
So then they put it at 42. And then the next guy does that. And then all of a sudden, comps aren't between 45 and 50. Comps are 42. And then the next person wants to beat comps. So then they're at 38. And this is how this whole thing goes down. And this is why when we talk about low pop, this is why low pop is important. Because if you have low pop cards, that's just fewer people that can do that to you.
Yes.
So if you're selling a card that there's 2,000 PSA 10s and you have one, you're potentially, obviously some people get those PSA 10s and they're holding, but there's always, when there's 2,000 of them, there's always going to be competition out there.
Yes.
So when you're selling a card, let's just take that McGwire card we talked about a little while ago. And again, McGwire, not a Hall of Famer, certainly has a tarnished background, but there's still a ton of people who collect him. There's still a ton of people who love him. And that card that has 137 in a PSA 10 compared to the 1,700, you're just competing with less people when you go to sell that.
Right.
Now, obviously, there may be less people out there looking to buy the card. That's the other part of the supply-demand curve, is there's got to be demand. But we're talking about less than 10%. So I'd rather be in that spot if I was going to buy, which I don't think I would buy right now anyway. I still think that these cards haven't hit their floor by far. But if you're selling, I would rather have the rookies card than the rated rookie card right now.
Yeah, and you and I talk about this a lot, and I think this is why it's easy for us to talk about now without a lot of prep. Is how do you price your cards? What do you do? Like we've talked about, if you want to get rid of your cards, put them for auction, but you might lose money. I mean, you might lose money in the end. Strategies that you and I use are, I think you're still doing this, but the buy it now prices and holding still pretty close to the comps or trying to beat the last comp, as you mentioned. Is that still the strategy that you're doing right now? Is honing in on a buy it now price and hoping that the fan of that person's card is going to find it eventually? You're not trying to reach the masses with it. You just want to find the right person who's going to buy that right card for that right price.
I think
how are you approaching it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes into just how much competition's out there. I mean, if we're talking about a card that there's 2 or 3 of them listed, I don't feel like, and especially if I see there's 2 or 3 listed and there's been 10 that have sold in the last 90 days, I don't feel like I need to get really competitive pricing wise. I can kind of go in there maybe at the average selling price and kind of work with that. But if we're talking about a 1990 Fleer Michael Jordan card, PSA 9, in which there's, I don't know, tens of thousands, 5 figures now, and there's tons of them on eBay, you better be beating everyone else's price if you want to sell that card. There's just so many of them right now that if you're not beating everyone else's price, you're not going to sell it. So I think a lot of it really depends on what's out there. The other thing is even though that's a high pop card now, it's still Michael Jordan. And people may be like, I'm going to put this at the price I feel like it's a fair price. But if I don't sell it, I'm fine with holding that card.
Yeah.
But maybe if we're talking about, a Clyde Drexler card or somebody who's not one of the GOAT kind of people that's going to be in the conversation as one of the best players ever, that card there, I'd be more willing to move just because in 20 years, there probably isn't going to be a lot of people around who know who Clyde Drexler is.
Right.
Like we were talking about Kevin Seitzer and those kind of guys. Like, hey, when our generation is gone, when you and I and we're gone, like our kids aren't going to know who Kevin Seitzer is.
No. They're not going to know who Clyde Drexler is, and he's a Hall of Famer. But I will notice this, and I don't sell nearly as much as you on eBay, but I have been selling a lot during the last 2 years. And I will tell you, it's not brisk right now. The movement of cards, I was moving 3 to 4 cards a day. I'm talking about graded cards at a premium. I mean, these were great prices, and they were at the peak. We're moving cards. We were doing a lot of business, and business was booming as they will. And now I'm down to about, if I'm lucky, if I can sell 1 or 2 cards a week. The thing is, I'm not posting nearly as much, so that's part of the caveats, but fewer people are clicking on the cards. Fewer people are watching cards. That was one of the things that I really noticed when we were at our peak. People would watch cards, and I think they would, I'd get a lot more messages. What's your best price on this? And, will you take this? And you'd get a lot more offers. I think one of the things you mentioned, got me thinking as well. I think there's a lot of people who lost a lot of money for them, not saying like millions of dollars, but lost a lot of money for them, thinking they had a lot more stream coming in through graded cards coming back. Right. So, I think you and I have seen it firsthand. When we shipped these cards off, we were paying $12 to get them graded, and we were like, whoa, even if they come back as 8s, we're going to make $40. Well, fast forward 16 months when we get our cards back, those cards we're barely going to make our money back now. Right. And I think there's some people who probably went a little bit long on some of their prices because, again, you and I are about 3 months ahead of the curve. People are probably losing their shirts and just want to unload at this point. Yep. Or the other extreme is they're way overpriced and they're never going to sell for what they're listed at because they're trying to get their money back.
Sure.
And you see amazing price swings for the same damn product.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think is interesting. There's a ton of product that on a certain card, and the prices will be anywhere between 45 and 175. Like, it's crazy. And that's the thing that I think that to me is one of the most interesting things happening in the hobby on eBay right now.
I think a lot of it too is people that listed their card last year, and maybe they have hundreds or thousands of listings.
True.
They just don't go back through and reprice it, and they haven't. And at some point, they're going to have to. But I think they just put it up in 2021 prices and just haven't revisited that card. And I see that all the time when I'm looking for cards. It's like, whoa, that's a 2021 price right there. And you look at the seller, and they've got tons of listings up, and they just don't have time to babysit every listing. They just leave that price up there, and that's what it is. And at some point, that'll all kind of catch up. But right now, like you said, there are definitely big time wild swings out there in prices. And I think it was fun to talk about that tonight, and we got into that a little bit. But I think that's actually would be a really good shorty, as we can really break down some of this stuff. I've got a lot of other good stuff on eBay right now. There's a lot going on over there, and it's an interesting time right now.
Yeah, a good little tease for an upcoming shorty for sure. But since we were talking a little bit about it, I thought let's fill some more time here and talk about this and try and help our viewers and our listeners understand kind of the landscape, because I know there's not a lot of people that maybe are selling at the volume that you are or I am. And I agree with you. You mentioned one thing. I'm not quite a buyer yet, but I think the buying window is going to be opening up here pretty soon. And I don't see a lot of these cards that we're talking about. And these cards are, we're talking about cards in between like $20 and $60. I don't see them going up much, if any. Yeah. They're gonna just sit there. They're gonna sit there. If you're posting them, if you're listing, they're gonna sit there and they're gonna only go down. And that's kind of how I'm approaching it. And I think the hobbyist and the collector in me says, collect what you like right now, because I don't think there's many cards out there in that price range that you're going to hold on to and flip in a short time that are going to go up, exponentially. I think this is the start tracking the cards you like era of collecting right now, and target those cards at the prices that you can afford.
And there's a lot of people that are going to be happy about that.
Absolutely.
There's people that enjoyed the flip game, that enjoyed getting in and buying stuff and reselling it and watching those big swings in prices. But there's a lot of collectors who've been around for the last 20 years that were really upset over what's happened over the last few years. They haven't been able to buy like they like to buy, and they've had to sit on the sidelines and wait. And I think that the time that they've been waiting for is coming. Yeah. I don't know if we'll see, 2017, 2018 type prices in the next year or two, but we'll see what happens. I still think we're going to be better than we were as far as values go before the pandemic, but it'll certainly be a lot less than what we saw last year, especially early in the year. Last year was kind of bonkers. So
yeah, well, I'm glad we talked about it. I know I threw that at you, so look for more eBay chat coming up in a shorty in the near future. But again, we like to put in a plug for our YouTube channel, and we've got a lot of great new subscribers. We've got a lot of interaction on there. Man, we have some really good comments, and we have so much fun reading this stuff. And someone posted today about I remember $6 grading or something like that, or it was just like I could cry. I think I wrote back, my comment was I could cry. Like, it's like the good old days. Like, we weren't even around for $6 grading. You imagine that? Like, that's another thing that kind of blew my mind. It's just the opportunity to send a card in for $6 right now feels like it's impossible to even fathom. So love to hear the comments. If you're a podcast subscriber to our channel, give us some feedback. Give us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can bounce in between YouTube, the podcast, wherever you find that. We just enjoy hearing from our followers, hearing from our listeners, because you guys keep us going, and we're just here along the journey with you guys. We're just two average Joes collecting $20 cards and trying to have fun with it. We're not any big timers, and we don't have any sponsors beating down our doors yet. So we're going to continue on this path of hanging in that $20 to $40 card range.
Yeah, if Arizona Iced Tea's interested, though, I'd be willing to maybe take a couple cases.
Yeah, let's do that.
We can mention them.
Yeah, let's. If you guys, if anybody wants to send us anything, I guess we'll talk about it. I don't know. I guess
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know how sponsorship deals work, but I guess we're in. We'll be happy to sell out for you.
Yeah, we can create a contract on a napkin or something. We can make it happen.
Well, this is a good conversation, Chris. I'm glad your safe travels are behind you and you're back home, and we'll get back to throwing out some shorties here for everybody. And in the meantime, hope everybody's doing well, and hope you guys keep enjoying our show.
All right, take care, everyone.